Sarah, the Stitchin Mommy, and I'm here for a quick update. This is June 6th, I think. It's a Tuesday. And so I can share the rest of my Stitch Mania update that I filmed my April video, or my May video, pretty late, so you already saw a little bit of Stitch Mania, but I can show you the rest of that. And plans for June and tentative plans for July, in case I don't get to another video in the beginning of July. So, first off, I had some questions from my last video, and actually before that, I had some additional information that I shared in my last video. My last video, I showed differences between Golden Kite patterns and Heaven and Earth design patterns. And another thing I thought of since then that I have noticed it seems to be different is on Golden Kite patterns, the symbols make more sense, where there's thick dark symbols for dark colors and light airy symbols for lighter colors, so that when you're looking at a page it kind of makes more sense of what the shapes are going to be, because it's closer to the types of colors that they are. Whereas Heaven and Earth design patterns, often they don't really correlate with the shade of the color. So if you could have white be a big dark symbol, or something that doesn't really make sense. So the chart at a glance is not quite as manageable. So anyways, all that to say, in general, I think I prefer working off of Golden Kite patterns better, because they're a little bit bigger and they are easier to read, easier on the eyes. All that to say, I have a lot of Heaven and Earth design patterns also, and I still work on them. If a pattern has a lot of confetti, a couple patterns I've splurged per se on the large format version to make it just a little bit bigger, and all the rest of them I have are regular versions. But in Heaven and Earth designs, I'll splurge on the large format. With Golden Kite, you don't need to do that because it's already larger than Heaven and Earth's large format. Anyways, I had a question after my last video about how I crop my patterns, so I will go into that a little bit when I talk about my June plans, because I will be restarting a project with in a cropped size, so I'll show that when I do my June plans. And I also had a question about the differences between, in Heaven and Earth design patterns, there's regular patterns, and then there's quick stitch and mini and supersize and max colors. And if you go into where you can request those things, it explains it a little bit. But someone was curious if I could maybe shed some light on the differences between those things. And from what I can tell, a mini version of a pattern in Heaven and Earth designs is the full-size picture, just shrunk, which means you lose some details, but you have the entire picture. It's probably a little bit more confetti than a regular, because you have to there will be fewer squares for the same item, so you would maybe have more confetti to show that item. Some designs do better with minis than others, like the Amy Stewart bookshelves, for example. The minis lose quite a bit of detail because there's so many little tiny details in that type of pattern, or a Josephine wall or something like that. Wow. I just sold something on Etsy. That's my Etsy sell on Etsy app. It says, cha-ching, you sold something. And I sold something like 10 minutes ago, so I'm kind of surprised. Anyways, so some patterns, really detailed patterns like the Amy Stewart's Josephine wall type patterns, if you make a mini of those, you lose a good amount of detail because they had so much detail to begin with. Whereas if you had a more like a larger subject, where the design only has one or two people, or a landscape, or something that's more general, having a mini of that might work okay, because you didn't have the minutia of the tiny little objects you're trying to get. So having a mini, you know, shrunk down version of something that's a little bit more basic to start with can work really well in a mini. A quick stitch, however, from what I gather, a quick stitch is where they take a section of the original artwork and pull it aside and make a smaller pattern just out of that chunk of the artwork. It's not necessarily a straight crop. Like if you were to have the whole Stitch in Time Amy Stewart pattern and take one of the little vignettes, and I know they have a lot of the little vignettes as quick stitch patterns. They'd take one, they wouldn't just crop it directly out of the original pattern. They would take it from the original artwork and make it probably just a little bit bigger than it would have been in the pattern, make it a little bit bigger and rechart it all by itself. So it'll have more detail as a quick stitch for that vignette than it would in the little section of the big picture, if that makes any sense. And I have an example of my, I'll show this at the end because it's part of my June plans. This is Quick Stitch Iris by Josephine Wall, and this is one that I'm doing, and this has been taken from Iris Keeper of the Rainbow by Josephine Wall. I just printed this out from their website for you. I don't actually have this pattern, but this is the little section that they cut out and made a separate pattern for. So it's kind of a crop, but they also, you know, I don't know about this one because it's kind of a small pattern, but a lot of the quick stitches, they're not a direct crop. They crop it from the artwork and then make a fresh pattern that's slightly bigger than it would have been in the original. However, like the freebies sometimes are straight crops. I think my penguins, You Make My Heart Melt, I think that was a straight crop from the original. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to be that way. So, and supersize is the opposite of mini, where they took the regular pattern and made it bigger. So the little details then you can have even more pixels to figure out to paint the little details. So you get more detail when you supersize a pattern. So you have a regular pattern, make it into a mini, regular pattern, make it into a supersize, or take a crop and do a quick stitch. The max colors is also another way to get detail without making it bigger. They have where you have a regular size max colors, where they add more colors. Most of their Heaven and Earth designs are around 90 colors. So a max colors goes up to like 230 colors, which is a lot of more colors. But you don't have to make the pattern bigger. You just have more detail allowed with the extra colors. More confetti in that case as well. And I have my stitching shelf with max colors because I didn't want a big one because it's already big. Supersize is even bigger than big, but the bookshelf patterns are already pretty big, so I didn't want it any bigger than that. So I went with max colors to get more detail in the same size. Some people who really, really, really love a certain pattern will go for supersize and max colors, so they get the most amount of detail possible out of a certain design. So I hope that was helpful. If I didn't clarify something, feel free to ask another question. I'm trying to go quickly. I only have a few minutes. So first, let's get into the stitching. I have, just kidding. Somebody also asked me about, on Instagram, they asked me to show my diamond painting because I did a little bit this month. And I just have a little kit that I got on AliExpress. I can try to link it below. It's not any designer that I know of. It's not any specific pattern that I know of. It doesn't even have a name that I know of. This is the design, and it came with all the like little stones that you use to put on the canvas, and I keep them in my. I already had this because I didn't want to buy anything special. I already had this little divider with the alphabetical index cards. So on each index card, I put the numbers of the beads, and then within there, I used some of them. I used pill bag zippies. Sometimes I used a regular snack size zippy with the symbol and the color on the bag. And these, let's see, these are the ones that came with the kit. They were these tiny little ones, but they didn't have enough for every color, so I had to get creative and find some extra bags so that all the beads are in a bag and they're filed by number, so that when I get to them, they're easy to find. And then I'll like dump a few out on my little tray and use them. I'm not stitching this. I'm doing this diagonally because it was easy to peel back this cover. Diamond painting is like has a sticky surface where you see the symbols underneath, and you just put the little colored square on the symbol. And I asked for this for my birthday last year, and my husband got it for me. I'm doing one little like 10 strip diagonal at a time as I have time, which isn't that often. So this is how far I've gotten, which has been fun. It's the start. It's like the corner. It's a tree. There's some pink bushes starting down here, and there's going to be a path, and it's like a medium sized on AliExpress that you can get them in a variety of sizes. This one was like a medium size, so I thought that'd be a fun thing just to try. And I don't know if I'll do any more of them. It is kind of fun, but I definitely do one at a time, one project at a time, because I don't want to have to store all those little beads, the little resins, I think they're called. I don't want to get into that hobby like excessively like I do cross stitch, but it is fun. It's fun to do something different once in a while. Okay, now, and I will, if people enjoy seeing that sort of thing, I can show that whenever I do a new diagonal and share my progress. If you don't care, feel free to tell me that as well. And I'll just stick with sharing that on Instagram, and that's fine. So with stitching, I had one finished, as always, with my Snowflower Diaries. This is June. And as with all of these, I have done mostly Gentle Arts threads, and a few of them are substitutions. So this top one, the lighter green in here, is the DMC equivalent. The yellow is DMC equivalent, yellow and gold. I didn't have those colors. Something I thought was interesting is the door to the beehive is the same color as the bear, the walnut color, and the table is this outside color, which I don't remember what it is now that I'm brick path, I think. But they practically match. On the example that was stitched up, this is really dark, the door is really dark, and the table is really, really light. Almost the same color as this, but it didn't work out that way with how, at least where my variegation was on my thing. And it doesn't look bad. It was just interesting how it didn't really turn out the way that their example showed. But I like the little bees, lazy daisy wings, and it's nice to have a finish. Little finishes, especially when I am stitching large projects almost exclusively, it's fun to do those little ones to kind of just have something fun and little to do. So I updated my whip list in Excel, and I realized that now that Stitch Mania is over, I have 42 active whips. Some are more active than others. Some I haven't worked on in probably 15 years, but I have 42 active whips that I may stitch on again in some point in my life. 20 of them are full coverage designs, like all the way full coverage. Some of the rest of them are like partial full coverage, where they're almost entirely covering the fabric, but maybe not in the sky, or like very thick stitching, but 20 of them are actual full coverage, Golden Kite, HAED, and 1 Art of Stitching. So I'm crazy. Yes. And seeing that is a little daunting and a little sad, because that's proof that I really can't work on everything every year. But I do have some that are close to being finished, and I'm hoping that, you know, working on things at a week at a time, I can kind of narrow, like chip away at that a little bit so that I can get to more of them more often, because I love them all, especially all the full coverage. I love full coverage pieces. They're so pretty. Anyways, just thought I'd share. I thought about doing like a whip parade of at least all my full coverage pieces, of maybe all of them, but that would take an eternity. So I might, if you really, really, really want to see that, I might do a separate video of that. Otherwise, I'll probably just bring them up as I work on them, and you can see them then. So my first, well, I guess it's a new start, but July from the Snowflower Diaries will look like this. This is one of my favorite ones because it's so colorful and summery and beachy, and I love those bright colors. I got a little bit done on Saturday, first weekend day of June. Got all the rhubarb color done. That's what this is. And this is a lighter pink that's just DMC because I don't have that gassed color. All the rhubarb is done, and I got July stitched. And didn't get a chance to put any stitches in on Sunday at all, but Monday I finished the Y so that I could at least have the word finished to show you guys. So I'm excited about that one. My other, let's see, I'll do Temperature Garden first. This is my Temperature Garden that I made my pattern of. It's in my Etsy shop. And I'm having a lot of fun working on this one. I can do another petal today if I get time. And this is where it was last time you saw it. And here it is now. So I have all the months finished through May is finished. And the stem, I can usually, with the length of string I've been cutting, I can usually do like 3 stems with 1 length of thread, because this is 32 count, 1/1, so it goes pretty far. So I did these 2 and just kept over until my string ran out. So I'm already ready to go for June. I don't even have to count that much when I start my petal today. So it's starting to feel hot. It's starting to feel summery. It's still been kind of like hit and miss, hot, cold, hot, you know, which has been glorious. We have not had spring weather last that far into the year for a long time here in Southern California. So it's been really nice that it's not already triple digits. Although I have heard from some other people stitching this who live in Texas, that it has been triple digits where they live. So I am very sorry that you have to deal with that already in May, but I'm sure we'll get there. We just haven't gotten there yet. So that's where I am on Temperature Garden. And my other regular whip is You Make My Heart Melt by Heaven and Earth Designs, and it is so close. So close. I know I've said that before, but I think I underestimate how long I will take to do this because it's so small, but there's still a whole bunch of stitches in there because it's 1/1. So even though it's physically small, there's still a lot of stitching. However, I think I am so close that I should be able to finish it in the month of June. So don't hold me to that, but I'm very hopeful that that will happen. Here's where it was last time you saw it. And here it is now. This is the freebie You Make My Heart Melt. It's no longer available on their free charts page, but you can find the full pattern. And I have a little bit of his tummy left, and this is all black right here and a few other colors of dark down here. The black is nice to just pick up if I'm in the car or like riding in the car when it's moving. The black is nice. And then occasionally during TV shows I'll pull out this and work on some black because it's mindless, just like back and forth, filling it in. Most of the TV shows that we watch, I actually like to watch them. So I don't do a whole lot of stitching while we watch TV, unless it's like, there's a couple shows that I don't mind. They're more reality type shows that it's okay. Pardon me, our lawnmowers, they're outside. So anyways, I'm super excited. I work on this about 15 minutes a day while I'm waiting stationary in the car, waiting for my kids to get out of school. So that's most of the time I work on it, is 15 minutes a day, chipping away at it, and it's just about done. I'm hoping I can show you a finish next month, and maybe even framed if I can get out to find a frame. We'll see, because the kids are almost out of school, so unless I find a frame like in the next couple weeks, that might not happen. Bringing my boys to the craft store might not happen. I don't think I want that to happen. Okay, so Stitch Mania, I did 5 new starts in Stitch Mania, and the first one was Ashley's Roses by Mirabilia, and I already showed that to you in my last update video, so I won't show that again. Second one was Quick Stitch April Fairy by Heaven and Earth Designs, and I will show you that one. I did show you that last time. It looks like this, and I showed you some progress, but I believe I was midweek working on that one. Let's see, where's this one? So I will show you where I ended up getting to. This one I'm stitching stitch by stitch in a diagonal fashion. Oh, here's where it was last time. And here it is now. I was able to finish that last diagonal I was hoping to. So I have 3 full diagonals in this corner, which is the equivalent of about 1 full column on a page 1 of a Heaven and Earth Designs. And I have a tiny bit of a start at the top of this column. Still more hair to go for another few columns, but I'm really enjoying this. And something I forgot to mention last time is that the way I stitch in hand, I hold my fabric like this, which is really nice, starting in this corner diagonally, because I'll never actually touch my finished stitches. So that is actually an intriguing idea, to do more things like this, because I don't physically handle my finished stitches when I start in that corner doing that diagonal method. So I liked that, and there is no diagonal lines, no diagonal column lines. It's very smooth, very pretty. I like that method. I will possibly do that method on my one of my June restarts as well. That's on 25 count, just because it seems kind of fun, but there is a lot of confetti in that one, so I'm not sure I want to go down that path, but we'll see when I get there. My next Stitch Mania start was La Soiree by Golden Kite, and this one is a cropped pattern as well, and I can explain a little bit about, this is the original, this is the whole pattern, the whole picture of the whole pattern. What I did is I decided I didn't want that much background, so I looked at the pattern pages, and this is where Golden Kite's patterns come in handy. I physically looked at all the pages of the first row and noticed they were all wallpaper. And here's the second page of the second row, and you can see here's the start of the first lady's hair. So she's got this much wallpaper above her head still, and you can see her head starting there. So I knew that I was safe. I think she's got the tallest head And I would just look through and double check the whole row to make sure I wasn't cutting off anything important. Here's another lady's head that you can see starting to appear. And a little bit farther down, here's the other lady's head. So I knew on all of those, I wasn't going to cut off anyone's head. They would have plenty of cushion above their head to like make them stand out off of the background. So I went ahead and just cut off the entire top row. I print out all my pages and just keep them in my binder, and I just took them all out of the binder, made them scratch paper, and called it good. And now I'm starting at the first row of the first page of the second row is my number 1. It's page 14. Then later I realized too, this over here, her chair, I would like to keep it through her chair, but the rest of this, like the clock and this background, I don't really care about that either. I like this vignette. I like this little bench because it's got these roses and the Afghan. That's cute, so I don't mind that. But this over here, I don't really care about that. So I went to check and saw if this last column of pages had this chair, and they're all darker colors here, so it was a little bit harder to see compared to the like light colors, dark colors of the contrast between background and hair here. It was a little bit trickier, but you could tell where the clock face was to know like where where the page cutoff was. And I could kind of figure out where this chair, I think the page maybe stops like right there, right on the edge of the chair. So I went ahead and took off that last column as well. So on how I arranged my binders, I have all the pages printed out already. When I first start a pattern, I print the whole thing out. And then I put a sticky note at the beginning of each row so that if I want to work vertically down into the next row, I can just quick tab over to the beginning of the next row and then see like how many rows there are and which items are in which rows. And then so when I was cropping the last page in each row, I just went to each row and like just ripped out the last page, and that's what I'll do. I just won't stitch that page. So that's pretty basic, I guess, but that's how I crop pages. So I'm doing that. And since it's background at the beginning, let's see, I'm right here at the beginning where it will be a little bit of this wallpaper, and even in the first page it gets into some of this. No, I'm not there yet, but I'm almost there. So that was kind of fun to do. This is, did I mention this already? I keep these in wrapping paper tubes. This is 24 count Congress cloth, which is kind of like a stiffer, thicker thing than regular fabric. But I am stitching this 2/1 half stitch, and this is where I got to. So there's 2 pages, and we've got like a little strip of wallpaper that you can kind of see there, and the start of a little design in the wallpaper. So it was kind of fun to see some of the details even in the wallpaper start to come out. Lots of light colors, but that white woodwork wood paneling will be like right here, and then her head is on page 2, my page 2. So I'm so excited that that's kind of coming along pretty quickly, because there's not a ton of color changes in this first section. There's still quite a few, but not as bad as the next one I did. So the next one was the Flower Garden by Heaven and Earth Designs. And another one I have done of this design, of this artist, is a golden kite pattern, and it has really bad confetti in the background also. Oh yeah, it's in this one. I'm trying to figure out which binder I have it in. Okay. My next Stitch Mania start was the Flower Garden, And I started up here in the corner again with half stitches, so it's all this like confetti madness in the leaves. So that was this one. This is on 28 count, 2/1 half stitch in Rose Monaco, and this is where I got on that one. Lots of little details. Some of these colors, some of these right here, were only in this page. One stitch of one color was only, that was it. The only one on the page. There wasn't any in the next page. Couldn't park it. It wasn't anywhere. It wasn't over here. It wasn't down here. So like, all right. So, and another color had like 3 stitches. So, but most of them I could park them and it was happy. And I was a little bit ready to be done with this confetti when the week came to an end. So it did take me a little bit longer because the column is a little bit longer than a Heaven and Earth page and more confetti than the last pattern. So I only got 1 column done on that, but it's still a good goal, a good finishing point to finish the column. So that was happy. My last Stitch Mania start was another golden kite, Norwegian ship under sail, and I worked up here in the clouds. This is also 2/1 half stitch because it's there's blended threads, so I couldn't. This one is on 25 count also, so I was a little bit tempted to try the diagonal corner method again, but I can't do 1/1 with this golden kite pattern because it's got lots of blends and lots of grays and taupe and stormy sky colors. So there's not too many colors in this one, but I don't think I had a whole lot of stitching time, so I was kind of hoping to get 2 columns done on this one also, but that wasn't in the cards for that week. So, but at least, again, I finished 1 column. I'm happy about that. I'm happy about the start I got. This one is it's got a good amount of background, but I couldn't cut anything off because the first page cuts, you know, you see some of those sails in the first row. So I think this is in maybe page 3. So I just went with it, and it's already a small version, so that's that one. Now we're moving forward, and I have gone back to Waterfall in Yosemite, which is my Focus for a Finish piece by Golden Kite, because we have a location in the house designated for this when it's completed. Who knows when that will be. This is really daunting to me to think about how long it's going to take to work on this. But it's coming along. I'll show you where it was last time because I did work on it a little bit yesterday. I pulled it out yesterday for the beginning of my June stitching. And here's where it was last time. And here it is now. Not a ton more, but I finished this column. 2 shades of white is what I worked on yesterday, so it went pretty quickly. And each time, since it's just, there's a lot where I go into the next row, so, or the next column. So when I do each column, there's not as much to do because I've already done part of it. So anyways, that's coming along. I'm hoping to work on this during my weekday time every other week. So this week I'll work on that, and then in 2 weeks I'll work on it again. In between, I'm planning to do Wine and Whips for Stitch Mania, and I'm going to do 2 restarts. This one. Stitcher's Retreat is a free pattern. I believe it's still available on Heaven and Earth Designs website. I've already started it Cross Country, Extreme Cross Country. And I showed you this before, but I'll go ahead and show it to you again. This is where I got about 1 page's worth of Extreme Cross Country with one color, and the plan was to do the entire piece in this color before moving on to the next color. But then I realized there's just too much background for me, and I decided to crop it. So just like the other one, I looked at the pattern, I looked at the actual pattern pages and figured out where their heads started, where their chairs, you know, backs and different things, and kind of gauged, like, based on where the pages stopped, would I like that? And I actually put papers on this page and like covered it up where I thought the pages might stop to kind of see if I liked that visual look. And what I ended up coming up with, oh no, that page came out. What I ended up coming up with is to take 2 full pages off the top, 2 full pages off the bottom. One of them was a partial row, wasn't a full page, that's why it's a little bit shorter. And then 1 full column off this side and 1 full and 1 partial column off of this side. And it ended up being roughly that line is what I will end up with. And I was much happier with the prospect of how long that would take me, and that as I'm working Extreme Cross Country, the shapes will come about faster because I'll be focusing on the main subjects. So I will be picking out that corner that I just showed you, because I'm not doing that at all anymore, and restarting the pattern up there with this new upper corner, which will be right there. So the hope is that I will get that all frogged and restarted in that week. I will also be working on a frogging video, I'm like sinking down here, unpicking video to be able to show how I go about ripping stuff out. And hopefully that's helpful to some of you. The other restart I'm going to do is Quick Stitch Iris, which I just realized I didn't get out. I think I showed it last time, so I'll put that in here. And I will be picking out what I did. It's on 25 count. I had done 2/1 and I decided that was too bulky for me, so I'll be restarting it 1/1 on 25 count, which I have heard from multitudes of people on Flosstube that is 25 count 1/1 is their favorite way to stitch. So I have already discovered I like 28 count, so I'm curious to see if I will also enjoy 25 count, or even if I would prefer 25 count. So I may do some diagonal stitching because I like how smooth and pretty that was. I may just try to do cross country because it might go a little bit faster. I'm not sure. I haven't quite decided. You'll see when I come back to see what I decided to do. Going into July, I already have a couple plans that I've been thinking about, and in case summer gets crazy and I don't get an update video made, I'm going to continue with the every other week on the Waterfall piece, and the 2 extra weeks in July. The first one will be sort of going along with 4th of July. Stitch Mania has red, white, and blue, you know, patriotic stuff. I don't really have anything like that. I do own Mirabilia's Lady of the Flag, the pattern. I think I got it before it was discontinued in an LNS somewhere, and so I have that, but I'm not really feeling to start. I don't really want to start it right now. I don't have any fabric for it, so that wasn't really calling to me. But I realized something that was calling to me is not patriotic, but it is red, white, and blue. So I will be working on my Snow Queen for my daughter in one of the weeks in July by Shannon Wasilieff. This is from the World of Cross Stitching December issue. I will be working on that, and I'm excited to see how far I get, because when I worked on this before, I was only working on it bits and pieces while I was working on other things on the exact same days, so it only got a little bit of love. I'm curious to see how far I can get if I put a solid week into it. Here's where it is now. I'm working all the way down, but you'll see it's got blue fabric, white trees and snow, and red berries. So red, white, and blue. There's still purple in there, but it's the closest thing I could come up with that I wanted to work on. And it qualifies with the colors. So red, white, and blue in July. And then the other one is one that I've also been wanting to try to finish or get close to finish on, is a Christmas piece. And a lot of people do Christmas in July, so that worked too. And it's my Mirabilia Royal Holiday. And I have, as I showed in my finish video, I have Spring Queen and Autumn Queen finished, and they rotate on the wall above my desk. I would love to have her finished and rotate in for the Christmas holiday. So she's finished down through like here. So I have like the bottom chunk of her left to do. So this is her. I'll show you where I'm at with her to see how far I can get in a week on her. I'm kind of looking at it through the fabric here. I have bits all the way to the bottom, but it's fully completed through here, beads and all. So, as all Mirabilias are, she's enormous. So here she is in all her glory. So we'll see. I'll give her a week in July, at least that's the plan, and do some Christmas in July. See how far I can get on her. And if I'll probably still need to pull her out again later. I might pull her out in November and possibly also December to try to finish. It'd be nice if she could be done this year. That would be really great. But she always takes longer than I think she will. That dress is big. So, I think that's it. And that's definitely all the time I have to film. So, I hope I didn't forget anything. I really enjoyed being on Flosstube. I really enjoyed interacting with everybody. And I hope you're all having a fun stitching summer and get some stitching time. And I guess that's it. Talk to you later. Happy stitching.